I'm very pleased to go to the line now to talk to Michael Savage, one of the legends in the broadcast industry, particularly the conservative talk world. He's on 225 stations. He's a Free Speech Award winner. He's also a PhD from Berkeley, which was my alma mater. He's a prolific New York Times bestseller. His latest book, which is out this week, is called Government Zero, and I think this is going to be right up all of our listeners at Breitbart News's alley. Mr. Savage, Dr. Savage, thank you so much for coming back to the program.
Oh, go Bears. I didn't know you were a Berkeley alumnus.
I was. I went specifically to cause trouble, but then I did get out of there a semester early because I'd had enough.
Well, this is the first show for the campaign of the new book.
Oh wow! What an honor! I must say, and I'm not one to flatter too many people, but I think our interview last year when you were on this program was definitely one of the highlights for me.
Well, I'd like to make news today with you, so that people don't think it's ho hum, another book. What good is that going to do?
Well, we did it last time, so why not this time?
Well, you did. Last time it was Stop the Coming Civil War, and I don't know whether we stopped it or started it. But the fact of the matter is we did something big last time, and that was to get all the conservatives who were not going to vote to hold their nose and vote for Romney. And I told them to do that. I said our object was after the Republicans were put back in power, our work would begin, and we would have to hold their feet to the fire. Well, that didn't work out too well. They have no feet to hold to the fire. They're footless.
Wow.
So here we go again. We're down to the wire. Government zero. No borders, no language, no culture. What do we do about a rogue government? And what does the title mean is the question. Government zero, meaning
yes.
More government, zero representation. It's a government unto itself. It doesn't represent the people. We all know that. So what do we do about it? Well, first we have to come up with a plan. And I have a 40-point action plan in the back of the book, last chapter. But before we get there, I have to say this at the outset. The most important thing I'm trying to do is have everyone who knows the story tell the story to someone who doesn't know the story. There's a wife, there's a husband, there's a daughter in college, there's a brother-in-law, there's a neighbor who may be nice, good people, intelligent, but they have no idea what the tsunami is that has hit America. They don't even know they're swimming in it. They don't know they're in the eye of the storm. They have no idea about the Muslim invasion. They have no idea about the rogue government. They have no idea about Barry in the White House. And my object is to take one last chance at awakening America. Many years ago, I started the Paul Revere Society back in the early 90s. Those were the progenitors of the Tea Party. If I have to say it myself, we used to have thousands of people attend these events. The Paul Revere Society events, name them and shame them, try them and fry them. Well, we have a movement. There are millions of activated people in the country, but we don't have representation. That's the problem. Isn't that correct?
It's exactly correct. And this is you've touched on something that I've talked about on this show a lot. Again, this is Alex Marlow on Breitbart News Saturday. My guest, Michael Savage, who has millions of readers, millions of listeners, and has a new book out, Government Zero. This awakening of America, Dr. Savage, this is so key because we are standing idly by, are we not, as people come in who have no intention of assimilating. And this is the thing that we don't talk about, is that if we want to open our borders the way that not just the Democrats, but people like Paul Ryan want to do, they want to open our borders, and then these people are going to flood in. And I've lived in Los Angeles all over it. They're not trying to live up to the American dream, many of them. They're trying to just co-opt America for their own purposes.
Well, that's half the problem. If we thought we had a problem with the illegals from south of the border, that's nothing compared to what's coming. If Barry from Honolulu is allowed to bring in, 100,000 Syrian Muslims, most of whom are military-age men, don't you love the pictures? Even Breitbart has the best pictures, by the way.
Thank you.
Surges of migrants into Europe. Do you notice that there are almost no women and children except when you do when the AP or Reuters wants to propagandize the fact that it's families fleeing, they show women and children. But if you actually look at the pictures on Breitbart, it's 90% men of military age. They're fleeing the war because they're probably here to start one. I haven't any idea why there's no opposition to this, not only from the Republican Party, but from the American people. But I think that with your show, shows like yours, mine, books like Government Zero, we just might be able to stop them before they sweep over this nation and convert it into something it was never intended to be.
I have a theory on this, and first of all, you make an incredible point, which is that it's not just south of the border. I think about 40% of the illegals in the country now are overstayed visas, and those are the type of people that the Mark Zuckerbergs of the world, the Silicon Valley people who you live all too close to in the Bay Area, Dr. Savage, who they want to bring here, undercut the American workforce, and then they overstay. But I got a theory that I think a lot of the reason why we accept it is because we've all been brainwashed in terms of multiculturalism. Is that my upbringing? I'm 29 now, and I grew up in Los Angeles. I went to some public schools, and there's no American exceptionalism. There's no patriotism, but you're taught that all cultures are equal, and that all cultures are equally a part of American life, and that there's no culture that's better than the next.
Well, I understand what the brainwashing is. Now, couple that with your generation, not you, having been raised on medication. A lot of the kids in your generation, and I have two children who are grown, I saw the pressures on us. We're raised on Adderall, Ritalin, Adderall. This was all a gigantic destruction of the critical mind. Let's put it that way. You put people on these medications, they feel better, but they're not thinking anymore because they're not feeling anything. And the object was to numb people. Once you numb a population and you convert them over to hedonists, where if it feels good, do it, the ethos of the 60s, you can mold them into any shape that you want. And believe me, they're winning. I mean, the other day I was on the radio, I said something that was written up. It's a big story for next week, which is I said we've lost the battle. And I had many people calling saying, Savage, I didn't know that you were a defeatist. I said, I didn't say we lost the war. I said we've lost the battle. Now, that was the day before, I said it on Wednesday, that was the day before Hillary smashed the Republicans into dust at the hearing, which is another story. I think it was orchestrated, incidentally. It was a kabuki play. They were in cahoots with her. We can talk about that if you want, because they could have brought in a surprise witness, like the uncle, the brother from Sicily and the Godfather, who would upset the whole hearings. And that surprise witness could have been any one of the generals or admirals who was ready to send aid to Benghazi, who was fired right after the Benghazi disaster, in order to make certain that they wouldn't testify.
Well, let's talk about that. Well, walk us through your theory in there, because I thought the second I saw Bernie Sanders tell us to get off the emails that the Clintons have their hand in so much more than we understand.
Well, I hate to keep referring to the book, but I will name the general.
No. I know we want you to refer to the book, please. We're here to sell some books today.
It's embarrassing after a while, but the fact of the matter is, it's important. There were generals and admirals dismissed by Obama almost immediately after the Benghazi disaster. General Carter Ham served as head of the United States African Command during the bloodshed in Benghazi when the 4 Americans were murdered, right? Now, who was Ham? Very few people know he was a career military man, African-American, by the way, 26 years of service. And even he, because he was critical of the Obama administration for not sending reinforcements to help the U.S. citizens under attack in Benghazi, Ham was, quote, resigned and retired in April 2013. They threw him out. Stalin shot the generals who he opposed. Obama smears them and fires them. He could have been brought in. He could have been brought into the hearing as a surprise witness, saying we were ready, willing, and able to send aid. Rear Admiral Charles Gouet, Navy, commander of Carrier Strike Group 3, the best of them, in charge of aircraft carriers in the Mediterranean Sea the night of the Benghazi assault on September 11, 2012. Under testimony, he said he could have launched aircraft to the destination. Now listen what they did to this man. He was accused of using profanity in a public setting. Can you believe that was the pretext for firing a hero such as Admiral Charles Gouet, commander of the Carrier Strike Group, who could have sent aid to Benghazi? Now, you ask yourself, why didn't the Republicans call him during the hearing to testify that he was ready, willing, and able to send aid? The answer is because they probably threatened him. They retired him with full pay under the assumption that if he ever testifies against this administration, this corrupt Government Zero of ours, lose the pension, be court-martialed. God knows what they had him sign to maintain his pension. At least that's my guess, okay? I'm writing a movie script. Let's put it that way. I'm writing a movie script. And that's how the movie gets written. And if it was a movie, the Republicans really wanted to show the good guys winning. In the end, they bring in one of these admirals, generals fired right after Benghazi. He testifies. The hearing erupts into a stunned silence. That's the end of Hillary Clinton's career. So you ask yourself, why didn't they bring them in? Answer, because they were in cahoots with Hillary to make certain she walked away unscathed, to anoint her the next president of the United States of America. It's a plan. It's a plot. It's unbelievable. It's government zero from the top to the bottom.
Well, let's explore this concept more. What is your assessment of the presidential race to this point? What are the narratives that are surprising to you, and what are the ones that you feel like the public is not really catching on to that they should?
Well, I've been ridiculing and actually imitating Bernie Sanders. I have his voice down perfectly. I've imitated him on the show because I grew up with this type of communist street agitator. Mm-hmm. Hard to believe that the people can't see what this crackpot really is. But nevertheless, why is he getting so far? Well, we know there's a certain number of people who would vote for this kind of idiot of income redistribution, take from those who have and give it to those who don't have, the whole game of the haves and have-nots. But why has he even been allowed to get this far with Hillary being so dominant? There's one answer, which I've stated for over a month on my radio show. It's to make to make Hillary look more centrist and more balanced.
Yes.
She's a far leftist. We know that. She's a one-worlder, a new world order type. She'll sell this country out as fast as she did in the 8 years that her and her husband were ruining the nation. And I don't want to go into that right now because we start looking back, we're not going to look forward. But so Bernie has been allowed to ham it up on the stage, to look like the leftist lunatic he is, so that by comparison, Hillary looks almost centrist. If that were not the case, he wouldn't have gotten this far. He's part and parcel of the Democrat machine. They have a totally controlled ship. That's my estimation.
How about the Republican side?
Well, I happen to be a Trump fan. I'm on record for him. I know he has a mixed record. I know people are leery of him. I know they don't think he's serious. I think that he's our only and best hope. And I think so because I know certain things about his organization. I know certain things about his own personal life that are wonderful. He's an extremely good man to his employees. Let's start with that. He is very patriotic. He loves the military. And, you know, I rank candidates in order, in the following order. One, who is best for national security? It has to be Trump. He's even said he would close certain mosques. Have you heard anyone else say that?
No one speaks that directly.
Well, he said that. He said,
and he's doubled down on it when challenged.
Right. He said that. He didn't mince words. Now, I don't know the other candidates who would say that. Now, I know there are some very good men. I get it. But Rubio is a stooge, a plant. What can you make of Rubio when you have a billionaire Republican, Sheldon Adelson, supporting him, and a billionaire Democrat named Larry Ellison supporting him? What does that tell us who Rubio is? The object of Rubio is to bring in as many cheap workers as the hotel industry needs and as Silicon Valley needs. It's that simple.
Well, I wanted to ask you about the Speaker of the House race, which devolved very quickly with Boehner out and then McCarthy out, and Cantor, who is their hope, getting ousted last go round. And it looked like things were finally heading in the direction of this populist grassroots movement. And then all of a sudden, the Freedom Caucus goes for Paul Ryan by a 2/3 margin. Another guy who is backed heavily by the donor class. And I'm just overwhelmed by what the donor class was able to pull off. And I just wanted to get your take on that race.
Well, there's a simple phrase that you've heard since you're a kid. Money talks and BS walks. The money controls everything. You say donor class, they run the country. They want a malleable, pro-amnesty speaker. They want someone identical to John Boehner with a different face. It's that simple. In fact, he's more liberal than Boehner. He will go along with the entire amnesty movement. And it happened because the power and money want it. There's no stopping them. There's literally no stopping this illegal alien surge. And the question is, it's like someone comes into an emergency room. They've been hit with gunshots. You don't know which gunshot do you treat first, right? We, the American people, are like that gunshot victim. We're bleeding from so many wounds inflicted upon us by this government zero of ours that we, the people, have to decide what to triage. What do we treat first? What is the most critical element here? To me, it's not even the surge from south of the border anymore, because the biggest threat to our survival is the Muslim surge that Obama wants to inflict upon this country in the coming months of his regime, the months that remain of his regime. He's got to be stopped. There have to be huge rallies to say no to this, and it's got to be done in a way that doesn't paint the protesters as racists. That's a tough battle to fight.
It's very tough, but I think this is very important, which is why this is a good discussion, because as you know at Breitbart, and thank you for giving us a shout out on this, is we've been covering obsessively the migrant crisis in Europe. But if you go back over the last 10 years, everything we know about demographics, which is that the Anglosphere is not producing children, the Muslim world is producing them at 3, 4, 5, 10 times the rate, and they have a ideology that is not just religious, but it's political, and they want to proselytize. They want to share their values the way that we refuse to share ours around the world at this point. And why wouldn't it come here? What are we doing with our open borders and our visa programs the way they are now, and the politics of our president and so many people in Congress? What you talked about the coming civil war. I mean, maybe this war is going to be on multiple fronts, Michael Savage.
We're in the Civil War. This is what people don't understand. Last year I warned people about the coming Civil War. What Obama's doing is conducting a civil war against American society, and he's doing it without firing a shot. You've got to give the man credit. He's the most able general of the radical left I've seen in my lifetime. He does it without raising his voice.
I agree with you.
He does it without firing a shot. He does it without firing squads. But he's conducted and is conducting a violent civil war against our society. In Government Zero, there's a chapter entitled, well, there's a lot of chapters: Zero Immigration, Zero Religion, Lenin's Pope, Zero Science, Zero Business Sense. But if we focus on Zero Immigration, on page 158, can I read you one or two lines?
Please do.
Some of the questions that you raised. In some way, it may not hit the nail on the head. Okay, what country is this, I ask? Obama has flooded America with Africans, Middle Easterners, and Chinese over the past 3 years. Europeans need not apply for citizenship. You can now see what he meant when he promised to transform America. While Mexicans remain the largest immigrant population in the United States, and here are the key words, the progressive Islamist administration has managed to increase immigration from the Middle East, Asia, and the Caribbean the most. Now, notice the phrase progressive Islamist administration. I think that's original to my book. And I wrote, it wasn't too long ago that America was still a first world nation that led the world in commerce and military might. Despite decades of progressive assault, private property, free enterprise, Judeo-Christian values, and respect for law and order still dominated American culture. Today, the entire foundation of American society is under assault by a progressive Islamist alliance that hasn't neglected reshaping our entire immigration policy. We're no longer a land of opportunity for ambitious, talented immigrants looking to escape social democracies with large welfare states. We're now a land of government handouts for waves of immigrants, both legal and illegal, who come here for the generous welfare benefits our progressive government keeps increasing. We're also a target. I have to read one more line, please.
Yeah, please do.
A target for Islamofascists who are actively infiltrating our free and open society for the express purpose of destroying American civilization. Now, here's the punchline. Turkey's former prime minister and now president, Erdogan, once said, quote, "We will ride the train of democracy to our ultimate goal," close quote, meaning a new caliphate based upon Sharia law. Well, he was talking about Turkey then, but the Islamofascists who are being brought in want to ride our American democratic train to the same goal here. What they don't blow up, they would eventually rule by voting. That's all in my book, Government Zero. These are incendiary words, but they're true words. They were not taken out by the publisher. Mainstream big publisher, huge distribution, 150,000 first printing. It's going to be in every bookstore in America on Tuesday, which is amazing when you think about what I'm saying. I've gotten through the censors. I've worked around the censors. The question now is, will it have any effect upon the buying public? I don't mean will they buy it. I know they're going to buy the book. Will it change anything is the question. Certain books have changed the course of human events. I can name a few in my lifetime. Rachel Carson wrote Silent Spring in the 1960s. I was a young college student. Now, I wasn't political, but the title alone said it all. What does she mean, Silent Spring? Well, I looked into it. I was a young biology student. It meant that if we didn't stop poisoning our airs, waters, and places with DDT in particular, the birds would die and we'd have a silent spring. I mean, it was a simple message that was very strong. That one book, a popular book, led to a great revolution in the overuse of chemicals in our environment, right? We're all seeking to create such a clarion call in our writings and in our speaking. You on your show,
right?
Me on my show, in the books I write. I'm hoping people finally get it with the two words, government zero, that we now have government anarchy. We don't have a government of the people, by the people, and for the people. That's a given. We have a government of the government, by the government, and for the government. It's a separate world. And unless we get control of it, and we have lost it with this Ryan business, we're going to lose everything, including our own freedom, within the lifetimes that we have left on this earth. I have children, and I don't want to name names. I speak to young people. The ones like you who are far-seeing, they can look ahead, and they see a dismal 1,000 years of darkness unless this is stopped. I hate to be so pessimistic.
No, but it's important. It seems like you lay it out with a lot of clarity in your book, Government Zero, which hits the bookstores on October 27th, that's in just a few days. I'm sure you can also pre-order it on Amazon. Michael Savage has been my guest. He's a talk show host on 250 Nations, written countless bestsellers as well. Very grateful for you to return to Breitbart News Saturday with Alex Marlow, Dr. Savage, and hopefully you'll come back soon and keep us updated on how the book is going and how it's resonating with the American people.
Alex, let me conclude by saying this. It's the young people like yourself who I have hope in. And that's why I created the Savage Scholarship Fund, and all profits from this book go to the Savage Scholarship Fund. I'm not looking to buy a new car or a new house. I have them. Alex, I'd like to play this show on my national show this week. If you could have your producer send us an MP3 of it, that's what we'll do.
I'll get to work on that right away, sir.
Alex, God bless you, and thanks for Breitbart. Thank you very much for having me.
God bless you, and good luck with the book sales. Alex Marlow on Breitbart News Saturday, Sirius XM Patriot 125, back with you in just a few minutes.